When I was in 5th grade going into 6th grade, they gave us an option. We could either 1, join choir. I wasn't much of a singer. 2, join strings. That seemed promising. 3, join band. I'd always wanted to learn an instrument. Or 4, do something that they called wheel, which is where they randomly assigned you some encore class like foreign language or sewing or... My first impression was that I most certainly did not want choir for personal reasons, and wheel just didn't seem like a solid option for me. The risque aspect of possibly getting a class that I didn't like wasn't very appealing to 12-year-old me. The option that I had begun leaning towards was strings. Something about the violin had always enchanted me. Anyone who played one always looked so graceful, and it honestly didn't look very difficult. That was what I was going to put down on my course request sheet. I was going to be beautiful with my violin, and no one else could tell me otherwise. But then, I heard about the trip. The infamous trip that apparently everyone knew about. The trip that the 6th grade band went on every year to Six Flags. For free. Emphasis on free. Everyone was super excited for it. If you didn't join band in 6th grade for that very reason, you weren't cool. So how could I resist? That day at school, I turned in my course request sheet with band circled at the bottom. For some reason that I can't remember to this day, I had ended up choosing percussion as my instrument. Apparently the drums spoke to 12-year-old Mikaila, and truth be told, I went on the trip, only to find out that I had a major fear of roller coasters. Part of me wishes that I'd realized that sooner. So my plans had kind of been stepped on, and maybe I didn't like Six Flags. But for some reason, I decided that I liked band. So I stayed. And I stayed. And I stayed until high school, when I realized a fear even greater than that of the Superman at Six Flags. Marching band. Now, for those of you who aren't very familiar with marching band, it sucks. Big time. It's like the military, but with instruments. My freshman year wasn't that bad. I played the bass drum, and I was the only girl on the drum line. Which was okay, until my drum instructor, let's call him Guy, decided that he thought I was a good player. He asked me to be on snare my sophomore year. For little band nerd me, this was huge. This was like a dream come true. Well, turns out snare wasn't my calling. The whole season, I had trouble keeping up with the other 2 snares. No matter how much I practiced, I just wasn't getting it. I didn't suck completely, but apparently being merely adequate wasn't good enough for Guy. He told me that I needed to be practicing at least 10 hours every weekend. 10 hours? What did he think? I had no life? Well, I didn't, but that's besides the point. But I was struggling, and Guy showed no sympathy. He didn't want to offer me any help or even tell me what exactly I was doing wrong. Just that I sucked. One time during band camp, we were in rehearsal and the other guy was offbeat. But because I had a history of sucking, Guy assumed that it was me. And he was furious. He came marching across the field toward me and yelled, "Put up your drum!" I wasn't sure what his deal was, but I put up my drum in confusion. But the next thing I knew, he whipped out a pocket knife. And of course I was scared. This big dude with a beard was coming at me with a knife. Who wouldn't be? And all of a sudden, he took the knife and rammed it in through my bottom drum head, making a large gash below the snares. He then threw down the drum, screamed in my face, "Play better, and maybe you'll get a new one." Maybe I cried a little. Okay, I cried a lot. But in my defense, I had a good reason. Anyway, stuff like that happened the whole year. And I was suffering. I hated going to rehearsal because Guy pretty much hated me. He treated me so poorly. And I heard what the others said about me. No good things, I'll say. Everyone there pretty much hated me, so why did I stay? To be honest, I don't know. Band was all I'd known for almost 6 years. What would I do with myself without it? So the next year rolled around and I was a junior now, 16 and full of anxiety. And that year was worse. Guy was 12 times more horrible and the show was harder. Now I'll say that was a hard summer for me. I made it about halfway through the summer, having had a few anxiety attacks during rehearsals. In the second week of band camp, my family went on a trip to Myrtle Beach. I was nervous about missing a full week of band camp, but I convinced myself that it'd be alright. So we went, and my dad told me that it was like a light switch. On that trip, I was a completely different person. I was happy, and I smiled, and actually enjoyed life, and wasn't a bucket of anxiety. But as soon as we came back, the switch flipped again. I was even worse than before. I was so stressed about band that I couldn't even get out of bed, more or less go to rehearsals. So, I just didn't. Now, of course, me going on vacation and never coming back didn't go unnoticed. I got an email from the band director asking what was up. This is when I had to make the decision. On one hand, band had been my life for so long. That was where all my friends were. I had invested so much of my life into it that it'd be like pulling the roots out from under a tree. It was all I knew. But on the other hand, I didn't know how much more I could take. I was having multiple anxiety attacks a week, and I absolutely dreaded going to rehearsal. The way I was living life wasn't really living at all. Band was supposed to be for fun, and I absolutely was not having fun. So that afternoon, I sent an email to the director stating that I would not be returning to rehearsal again. And that week, band was officially deleted from my course schedule. It was weird for a while. I found myself with a lot of free time on my hands. But my world was so much better. It was so relieving to have that weight off my shoulders. And little did I know, I would never see Guy again. To this day, I haven't seen or spoken to him once. Part of me misses band. I hadn't really lost any friends, we just kind of drifted. And we aren't as close as we used to be, but at least they don't hate me for quitting. Band was like an abusive relationship. I couldn't stand to stay, but part of me couldn't stand to leave. But overall, I'm glad I made the decision to leave. The quality of my life improved big time. I also got to focus on other things that I didn't have time for before, like theater and getting a job. So I guess I kind of learned a lesson here. You should never make yourself do things you hate doing if you don't have to do them. Your happiness is so much more important. There's no point in wasting your life doing things you hate. But don't get me wrong, I don't regret doing band. I would have never met some of my best friends without it, and I'd like to believe that I came out a better person. Also, I learned that I'm deathly afraid of roller coasters. Who would have known? But deep down, part of me really wishes that I would have just chosen strings.